Brian Moser, a name that holds an eerie weight in the world of Dexter. Known to fans of the television series as the Ice Truck Killer, Brian's role in the original book series tells a much different and much darker story. This video will dive deep into Brian Moser's origins, his twisted relationship with Dexter, and how his portrayal in the Dexter books differs from the version we saw on screen. In both versions of Dexter, Brian Moser is a notorious serial killer, but his alias and methods vary significantly. In the books, he is known as the Tamiami Butcher, a name given to him due to his brutal murders along the Tamiami Trail. His victims? Mostly prostitutes, whom he kills and dismembers in a disturbingly meticulous manner. The Miami Metro Police refer to the case as the Tamiami Trail killings, but what they don't realize is that this case will soon become deeply personal for Dexter Morgan. But why does he do this? In both versions, Brian's motives go beyond mere murder. His crimes serve as a twisted invitation for Dexter to recognize his true nature. One of the most fascinating details about Brian Moser in the novels is how eerily similar he looks to Dexter. In Darkly Dreaming Dexter, Dexter and his sister Deborah are initially convinced that Dexter himself is the killer when they see images of Brian's crime scenes. The resemblance is so uncanny that it pushes Dexter into questioning his own actions. Could he be killing in his sleep? But upon meeting Brian face to face, Dexter realizes the truth. He has a long-lost brother. Brian is slightly taller, broader in the shoulders, and has a paler complexion. The television adaptation makes some key changes here. In Dexter, the show, Brian's resemblance to Dexter is far less pronounced. He is played by actor Christian Camargo, whose lean build and sharp features contrast with Michael C. Hall's more rugged look. Instead of looking like a near-mirror image of Dexter, the show relies more on emotional and psychological similarities between the brothers rather than physical ones. Another major change? His occupation. In the books, Brian's employment is never stable. He works a variety of odd jobs, including real estate, imports, and even for a drug cartel. However, in the TV series, he is given a concrete profession, a prosthetist. This aligns with his surgical precision in dismembering bodies, adding a layer of expertise to his gruesome craft. Now let's talk about who Brian truly is at his core. In both the books and the show, Brian is manipulative, intelligent, and ruthless. But in the novels, his personality is even more sinister. He is a master manipulator, using a mix of charm and deception to control those around him. His ability to blend into society allows him to get close to his victims, and even Dexter's loved ones, without raising suspicion. In Dexter is Delicious, Brian meets Rita, Dexter's wife, and manages to completely win her over with his smooth, non-threatening facade. He presents himself as friendly and caring, all while harboring a complete lack of empathy for human life, except for one person, Dexter. This is a key difference between the book and show versions of Brian. In the TV series, he is more openly unhinged, displaying his obsession with Dexter in a far more direct and immediate way. The show presents him as someone who embraces his monstrous side but hides behind a charming disguise. Meanwhile, the books explore a deeper, more calculated side of Brian, one that takes years to fully reveal itself. In both versions, Brian and Dexter share a horrific past. As children, they were trapped in a shipping container for days after their mother was brutally murdered before their eyes. The trauma shaped them both, but in vastly different ways. In the TV series, Brian sees Dexter as a kindred spirit, someone who should embrace his urges without restriction. He goes as far as to kidnap Deborah, Dexter's adoptive sister, and gives Dexter a choice: kill Deborah and fully accept his dark side, or reject his true nature. But here's the major difference. In the show, Dexter ultimately chooses Deborah and kills Brian to protect her. It's a moment that cements Dexter's moral boundaries, showing that despite his darkness, he has a code, one that values innocent life. In the books, however, Brian's fate is quite different. Instead of killing him, Dexter lets him escape. Their bond is not severed, and Brian continues to play a role in Dexter's life in later novels. He even returns in Dexter is Delicious, forming a bizarre, brotherly relationship with Dexter, one that tests Dexter's loyalty to his family and his own darkness. Brian is not just a fleeting antagonist in the books. He is a recurring force, a reflection of what Dexter could become if he abandoned his code completely. In the books, Brian's ultimate goal isn't just to reconnect with Dexter, it's to liberate him. While the TV show presents Brian as an obsessive, almost desperate figure seeking validation from Dexter, the novels paint him as something far more calculating. Brian doesn't just want a reunion. He envisions a future where he and Dexter rule the night as an unstoppable force, freed from the moral shackles imposed by Harry's code. He sees Dexter's potential not as a mere killer, but as something greater, a perfected predator, unburdened by the artificial rules forced upon him by his adoptive father. This is what makes Brian in the books so uniquely terrifying. He's not simply a reflection of Dexter's darkness, he is its purest form, untouched by the need for restraint or justification. adaptation. Unlike Dexter, who constantly wrestles with his duality, Brian has fully embraced his nature, and he wants the same for his brother. He doesn't just tempt Dexter, he meticulously lays out a future where they can indulge without fear, creating a world where they answer to no one but their own desires. This plays out in Dexter is Delicious, where Brian's influence becomes more than just a lingering shadow. He actively inserts himself into Dexter's life, positioning himself as an uncle to Dexter's newborn daughter, subtly testing whether Dexter's newfound attachment to his family can override his darker instincts. It's here that the most chilling aspect of Brian's personality is revealed: his patience. He doesn't need Dexter to change overnight. He's willing to play the long game, waiting for the moment when Dexter inevitably tires of his human facade. And perhaps the most disturbing question the books pose is this: is Brian actually wrong? Unlike the show, where Dexter's connection to his family and moral framework remains firm, the books paint a more ambiguous picture. Over time, Dexter's code begins to crack, and Brian's way starts to make more sense. Could Dexter's loyalty to his family ever outweigh his true nature? Or is Brian merely telling him the truth he refuses to accept? In the books, Brian doesn't just want Dexter to accept his darkness, he wants him to redefine what family means entirely. Unlike the TV show, where Brian fixates on Dexter as his only true connection, the novels paint a more chilling picture. Brian envisions a world where their brotherhood expands, where they forge their own twisted lineage of like-minded killers. It's not just about Dexter embracing his instincts, it's about legacy. This unsettling idea comes to a head in Dexter is Delicious, where Brian fixates on Dexter's newborn daughter, Lily Ann. To Dexter, she represents everything good in him, the one person who might finally give him a reason to resist his dark passenger. But to Brian, she's a blank slate, untainted by society, unburdened by a moral compass. He doesn't see an innocent child, he sees potential. What if, instead of forcing himself into the mold of a normal father, Dexter raised her their way? What if she was taught to embrace the darkness from the very beginning? This is where the book version of Brian is far more insidious than his TV counterpart. He doesn't just want Dexter as an accomplice, he wants to shape the future. It's a terrifying proposition, because for a fleeting moment, Dexter considers it. He feels the pull, the temptation to abandon the exhausting charade of humanity and raise his daughter as something more. The books play with this concept masterfully, making Brian not just a relic of Dexter's past, but a dangerous blueprint for what his future could be. And that's what makes Brian's presence in the book so haunting. He doesn't need to convince Dexter to be a killer. Dexter already is one. Instead, he forces Dexter to question something much deeper. What if the real lie isn't his darkness, but his attempt to resist it? What if Brian's way is the truth, and Dexter's life of pretending is the real illusion? So, what happens to Brian in the end? In the TV show, Brian is gone after the first season, murdered by Dexter's own hands. His role, while significant, is ultimately a single chapter in Dexter's story. But in the books, Brian's arc lasts much longer. He plays a crucial role in later novels, even joining forces with Dexter in Dexter is Dead. Here, Brian shows his true sadistic nature, revealing a secret torture room filled with horrifying tools. The two brothers work together in a brutal sequence, torturing one of Raoul's men to extract information. However, Brian meets his end in an explosive climax. Wounded by a gunshot, he sets off a bomb that ultimately kills him, leaving Dexter to escape alone. Unlike the show, where Dexter chooses to eliminate Brian himself, the books allow Brian to remain a lasting presence until his dramatic downfall. So, which version do you prefer? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into your favorite psychological thrillers.